I assume it's going through this time. Normally I would check on my second computer, but as I blew it up last week, I don't think I can't. I assume it's working. It's up to you, unless you want to. It probably is. Okay. Right then.
It is working, Chair. I can confirm.
Lovely, thank you. That's good. Welcome everyone to this working party for Tuesday, the 5th of July. And then obviously to note the working party has no delegated authority, and anything we may take as recommendations will go to full council later this month. Are you taking the appointment as a chair, Colin?
No, you can do that.
No, okay. To recommend the full council appointment of a councillor as chair of the Leisure and Community Working Party and any vice chair, if desired. Nominations, please. Councillor Lucarini.
Well, if you're happy to continue, John, then I'd like to propose that you continue as chair. I think you've done a good job so far, and we've got less than a year to go now, so I don't see any reason to change it.
Thank you. Any seconder for that motion? Oh, I think Councillor Brown just beat Councillor Liz Smith up by a smidgen. Any other nominations? Don't think so. I'll take it formally. All those in favour, please show.
Yes, John, I am, but I can't put my camera on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can't see Margaret. I don't know.
John, I've got COVID, so I'm in bed.
Oh, you're in bed. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Sorry, Margaret. Yeah, I knew you had COVID. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see you. Not see you here, but you know what I mean. Okay, can I have nominations for vice chair then, please?
Just to let you know, Chair, I'm just letting Steve Powter in, who's going to be talking to one of the items.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Liz Smith.
Sorry about that. My screen's playing up. Yeah, I nominate Dave Smith, Councillor Dave Smith, as vice chair.
Okay, and if I may, I'd like to second that myself, if that's all right with everyone. Any other nominations for vice chair? Can't see anything. So all those in favour, please show. Great, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for your confidence again for the next however any months it is, 10 months is it, or something like that. Right, let's move on to item number 3, apologies for absence, please.
Councillor Davison and Councillor Furman.
Lovely, thank you very much. Declarations of interest and any requests for dispensation. Councillor Lucarini.
11A, I'm the chair of trustees for the Haverhill History Group, so I will sit this one out.
Okay. Okay, any other declarations? No.
Chair, I'll record that as other registrable interest, yes, if Councillor Lucarini is happy with that.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, there's nothing else there. Great. Minutes of the last meeting held on the 10th of May.
Do you want those shared?
Would you mind, please? Yeah, thank you. While that's coming up. That's right, it's worked this time. So I've just got to reorganise my screen, so it's the first time I've used it since I've moved to another computer. Right, I assume everyone's read this. Can I have a nomination, please? Well, not nomination, a proposer, please. Actually, I'm missing, I'll tell you what I'm missing. I'm missing, so let me just resize my window, that's better. Right, so can I have a proposer, please, for the minutes? Sorry, Councillor Dave Smith. Seconder, please. Councillor Lucarini. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Right. Moving on to item number 6, which is note progress of actions from the previous meeting. Lovely, thank you. So page 141, 142.
So that sign has been ordered.
Yeah. One thing we haven't done, Colin, is change those times, have we?
No, the sign's been ordered.
Yeah, but we were going to put this opening times 10 till 8.
Yeah, and a new sign has been ordered.
I know, I understand what you're saying, but which are we going to do first? Is what I'm saying.
How do you mean?
Well, we've the opening times is 10 till 8. At the moment, it's 10 till 6. Is what I'm saying. It's a timer on the splash pad.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
See what I mean? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Well, not being funny, but you're the only one who knows how to work it. So
No, that's fine. I didn't know if we wanted to wait for the new water pipe to be connected first. That was all.
well, it doesn't make any difference to a certain extent. If it spreads it out, then
Yeah. Okay.
they'll be
Right.
okay. I don't know the exact date when Martin will be able to do the
No,
water
that's
pipe.
fine.
I've not heard from him. I don't know whether he's on leave at all, but it's all ready to be connected. I did see Councillor Brown had his hand up.
Yeah. Okay. Just before they go on, I'll go down on Thursday and check it out. I'm out all day tomorrow. Councillor Brown, then Councillor Lucarini. I had.
Yeah, cheers, Chair. No, all it was around the connection for the pipe. So it looks like Anglian Water have done their part now, have they?
Yeah.
It's just down to Martin, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll G him up anyway, so I'll chase him.
Okay.
He does know, so there's no particular need. I know he'll get it done as soon as he can, but he hasn't acknowledged the email, so that's why I wonder whether perhaps he's away or something like that, because he's always been absolutely on the ball.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Lucarini.
That's okay, actually. I haven't got anything anymore.
No. Okay. Thank you. Right. So moving down then, Colin. Sorry. Have we got any further with numbers or anything at all?
I think Dan could confirm, but I think that the quarter that we're referring to is still in train at the moment, so it
That's fine,
wouldn't be
that's fine.
timing.
Okay. I was working on calendar year. You know, I'm like not admin year. Okay, 142 going down. Any news on the well, we know about the roof's got holes in it since we took the tiles off, but
This is going to sound like a complete lack of inquisitiveness, but Gary was showing Paul Trinder something about the Arts Centre building, but I didn't actually ask him what it was. I was more concerned with what was happening at the Leyston, to be honest. So I know that Gary is onto this, but I don't know exactly what the conversation that he was having with Paul was.
okay. Are we just using one contractor now? Are we sharing the load, as it were?
I think we're having conversations with one contractor at a time, and the one that I happen to know took place today was with Paul Trinder.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Lovely, thank you. Obviously Daniel joined us. That's great. I don't think there was anything else, if I remember rightly. Other than Vicky gonna chase up Grant, but she's on holiday at the moment.
Yeah, although she was aware of this, and I know that's something that she has been doing. But obviously, we haven't had any particular reports in, so I'll chase her. She's on holiday. I can't say much more.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, and the rest of it is all the reports we had. That's lovely, thank you. I'm going to move item 8 just before item 7, although I don't think there's any other members of the public here anyway. If you wouldn't mind, Steve's here. So save him sitting around for the rest of the meeting. Steve, did you want to come in?
Yeah, although to be fair, I'm sitting around no matter where I am. So
I know. I'm sorry. That's a bad pun. I'm sorry. Yes.
I know. No, that was me making a bad pun. Yeah. So hi. Thanks for letting me speak here. I just basically want to use this opportunity to see how we can improve the offer for the disabled community within Haverhill. Obviously, thank you very much to those.
I can't hear awfully well. Could you come nearer to your mic, Steve? Sorry.
Not particularly easily, no. Right, hang on. Let me see if I can turn the volume up on it. That's literally the best I can do. Is that any better?
Better, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as I was saying, firstly I want to thank all those of you who supported the Disability Action Group, getting a gazebo and everything for the Haverhill show this weekend. I know that was a bit of an effort, and I know Colin did a lot of work pushing that through for us in the last moment. So thank you for that. And now that we've got that and we're sort of getting a lot more established, we would really like to have sort of a voice at as many tables as we possibly could. Because, you know, I had a conversation with the local plan people on Saturday, as some of you know, and you know, there were a lot of things that are big issues for people in the town that those people didn't even know about. And of course, you know, you don't know until you don't know what you don't know, do you? So with us being a group of mainly disabled people and carers, we obviously have that lived experience that, you know, thankfully most of you don't have. So yeah, we are here as a resource, but also as a pressure group. We deliberately moved away from the name forum because that's just sort of sounds like a talking shop. And we are definitely trying to become more of an action group so that we can, you know, affect change within the town. I don't know the exact purview of this specific committee, so I don't know what areas to comment on, you know, right now. So essentially, a conversation would be good.
Steve, thank you. Yeah, we are, as the term says, it's a leisure and community, all aspects of the community. I just want to, before anyone else comes in, just follow up on something I think you mentioned maybe to Colin about drop curbs.
Oh, those things.
Yes, those things. They've been a bane in my life ever since I've been a counsellor.
Try being in a wheelchair.
I know. I appreciate that, Steve. You know, and I knew you before you were in a wheelchair.
Yes.
But as an interest, Councillor Dave Smith and myself, we were on site visits yesterday, including the Persimmon site, Northwest Haverhill. And I was told by the planning officer they'd had spoken to you, we got a planning application coming up tomorrow at Development Control.
I'm actually attending that tomorrow.
Are you? Okay, great. Basically, what we're one of the conditions they're saying is obviously making sure we've got drop curbs. But what we did, we had a quick drive around the existing Persimmon site on the way back from the site visits, and I was quite astounded. I don't know about Councillor Dave Smith. The lack of drop curbs was astonishing.
Yep.
After I dropped Dave off, I actually went round the Great Willesey one. I'd already been round it about 10 days ago. They're okay at the moment, as much as they built. They haven't built much, of course.
Yeah.
But the Persimmon one, yeah, they were, you know, across private driveways or drive entrances, if you like. I'm going to rephrase it. Nothing. Even the what is going to be not necessarily a zebra crossing type thing, but even a proper controlled crossing in that sense. I just found the drop curbs were just not even very wide.
No,
you know.
And we've looked at the plan, and we actually, well, I think we submitted comments on it. And there are situations where you've got a road going along, you've got one road meeting it, and it's got a drop curb either side.
Yeah.
Then a little way along, you've got another road coming down, and there's a drop curb either side. But there is no way of getting from this road to this road.
No, that's right.
And you know, what's the use of that? I mean, it's bad enough that places in town have. I went to Stylize this week up on Homefield Road, opposite us, and I literally coming all the way from Stylize down to meet Daniel at the art centre. It wasn't until I got to the allotments past the old Vauxhall garage that there was a single piece of path that had a drop curb at both ends. I took the whole journey on the road.
Yeah,
and you know that's not unusual in this town.
no,
The fact that new estates are being built with that issue still in there, and the fact that I believe the whole path along the Chalkstone is being replaced, but you know drop curbs aren't existent on there. I've tried to get from Jim Morgan's house to the petrol station at the other end.
Yeah,
and I happened to be using an app that was tracking the route, and it looked like a comb by the time I got there. I ended up going out, coming back, going out, coming back, and getting all the way down to the railway walk, which was the only way then to get along to the other end of that road. I mean, that's not even taking into account the areas with pavements that you simply can't navigate because. I have blown my motor on my wheelchair. I've told a lot of you this. I've blown popped a fuse on the back of my wheelchair, getting up a less than 1 inch step to get into a shop. So the drop curbs that are about 3 or 4 inches tall anyway.
Yeah. Massive barrier.
Curbs, but they're not drop curbs.
No, they're massive barrier. I can see that. Yeah. Any Councillor Dave Smith and Councillor Pat Hanlon.
Sorry, she hasn't quite got used to technology. Yeah, terrible. Yeah, as you say, John, we did have a quick look around. I think a lot of the problems at the moment is the fact that the final surface hasn't been put on a lot of those roads because they're still being used by construction traffic, and that makes the drop curb depth even worse. I think there are. You also have to think about. I think where there's long gaps between turnings, drop curves don't really help you to cross the road, do they, Steve? I mean, you need intermediate points, if you like, if you want to cross the road.
And the other thing with those is that a lot of the time the drop curves are pointed diagonally. That in order to cross the minor road, you actually have to go out into the main road and then back out again. It's not Eastern Avenue, the next one along by the petrol station. No, the petrol station.
Western.
Yeah, Western.
Yeah.
That's horrible. You just come
off.
Like you're gonna.
I did also notice that where some of these roads where there's lots of drop curves coming out of driveways, they're sort of so frequent. They throw you to the road. If you know what I mean. So everything slopes down towards the road when there's too many drop curves coming out from the other issue
those ones that are private driveways. There is a section of what should be grass next to it, but because people use them badly and pull out, it ends up creating a crater where the dirt should be. And that, if you're going along at night, especially when the streetlights are turned off, and you go at that in your wheelchair, I fall out, I go into the road, I'm stuck there. There's nothing apart from screaming. So it's the maintenance isn't great. And for some reason, the grass that was holding them together up Eastern Avenue has all had weed killer put down on it around the posts and everything, which that will degrade much quicker. So I don't quite see how that's helping everybody.
I know the other things I've spoken about previously is the changing places, the disability toilets.
There isn't one in Haverhill at all.
And I've been contacted by somebody saying that the disabled toilets on the wreck is not really fit for purpose. Could you comment on that for us?
I have to be honest with you. The provision of public toilets for disabled is so poor that I very rarely even bother using them. Oftentimes they are long and narrow, which means turning around to close the door is impossible. Other times they've got pedal bins in disabled toilets. I mean, once you mention it, everyone goes, "Yeah, that's ridiculous." But no, it's still there in hospitals and NHS places and everything. It's like that. The changing places thing specifically is about the specific provision of adult changing places. I know Colin's looked into these a lot because they provide. He's organising the one that's temporary for the music event, but it's a space, for those of you who don't know, for adult disabled people to have the facility to be transferred out of their wheelchair or whatever it is they need onto a bed, cleaned up, normally by a PA or a carer or something, and then enabled to transfer back into their chair. At the moment, the only one we have in Haverhill is in Tesco's, and that's out of order. So we literally have none in the whole town, which means that if somebody is doubly incontinent and they want to go into town, they have to spend the whole time verified that something's going to happen. And if something does happen, their only option is to go home whilst, in such a...
I'm assuming that's been reported. Yeah, I'm sure they will know that it's out of order, won't they?
Well, to be perfectly honest, it's not Tesco's responsibility to make sure the town's got a changing space.
No, but as it's on their premises, no.
But you know what I mean? It's it's not something that we should be relying on a shop to be provided.
No, I agree.
Barry's got one in the art.
But we know that West Suffolk has got a pot of money available for improvements and toilets, so we have been pushing for that to be used for obviously disability facilities. Obviously we support our personnel, support anything that we can do to help your plight, as it were. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Chair. What I can't understand is in my particular road where I live, if you want to cross the road because it's on the junction of the main Ratting Road, but if you've got a wheelchair, the ramp is about so I'm talking in feet and inches, I'm afraid, I'm that age. It's about 7 or 8 feet along from the corner, so that if a car turns left into the corner, which they do very quickly, you can't see around the corner. Now, when I cross that road, I'm standing on the corner, so I can see around that corner and see the cars coming.
It's a tricky one, because if it's literally on the corner, then, as I was saying before, that's what causes you to end up being thrown out into the main road. So you end up crossing, you having to go out into traffic. You have to wait till the main road itself has no traffic on it before you can cross the side road. There's no perfect solution to either of them, but at least there's a dog. As I said before, my mum was trying to buy a house up on Sorrel Walk, and with access from where they would be able to park their car, there was no way of her getting from there to the house they were looking at buying. That's just, it's not good enough. And as I was saying to the people on Saturday, they're still building houses in Haverhill that have a stepped access off of a level road and a level path. And I don't see why that is, in the modern world, being allowed to happen, because it doesn't cost the developer much more. They literally just need to create a slope up to the front door. It's like
that's another thing.
Half scoop of topsoil, isn't it?
Yeah, that's another thing. Now, because I've been on council since '98, and we had a disabled mayor that was in a wheelchair, and he was going on about that, what you just mentioned, all them years ago, and he was on planning. He was on town council planning committee as well. So, it's unbelievable that things haven't changed. And also, I don't know if it's the same now about forever housing, which means that people get old, the doors should be wide enough for a wheelchair. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm asking you now because I've no experience, but has that happened? Is the doors wider now than what they used to be?
They're slightly wider than they used to be, but as I say, if they're building houses that you'd have to have a step to get into it. Doesn't matter how wide the door is. If you're in a chair, you can't get in it.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And those The ones specifically I'm talking about are the ones behind the skate park now, the ones that have just been built at the bottom of that estate. And yeah, they're being built with stepped access. And what I was told on Saturday was, well, they only have to do 25% of them that are accessible. And I just don't understand why. You know, I know that you guys have no actual authority over people building.
No, that's the problem.
But you've got their ear, if nothing else. You know, you have got a way of contacting them and asking them why they're not doing that, and you know, really pressuring them and badgering them into doing as much as they possibly can to support that. I would like to say that we are not just a drop curve group.
No. It was just that example, Steve.
To be honest, on Sunday when we had our ideas tree that we had people putting little notes up on, so many of them were just about drop curbs, because if you can't get around the town, nothing else matters.
No.
There's no point. And like the amount of shops that are opening that don't have suitable access.
No.
Their reasonable adjustment is they have a metal ramp that you have to ask them to get out, but the door's closed. You know, if you're on your own, you've got no chance. And then when they let you in, they take the ramp away. So if there's a fire, you burn and die.
Exactly.
And they're tending to buy the cheapest ramps anyway, which have the lowest weight rating. And yes, although I'm probably the largest wheelchair user in Haverhill, it's a scale. There are a lot of, actually, I know there are at least 2 or 3 that are bigger than me. So it's, I kind of like have this idea that if you design things that I can access, pretty much all of the wheelchair users in Haverhill are going to be able to use them.
Yeah.
Using myself as an outlier, which then, rather than designing things for Dame Tanny Gray Thompson, design them for, you know, a fat bloke with a beard.
Yeah. I think you know, it is, as Councillor Hannon sort of said, this has been going on for donkey's years, which is a real shame. And you know, as you quite rightly say, that, you know, new houses in the 21st century should be fit for purpose. It is unfortunate. I was reading the S106, the legal document for Persimmon last night, and there is a place in there for the forever housing is no more than 10% of the housing on the Persimmon site. You know, somebody 8, 9, 10 years ago from the planners decided that was sufficient. But you're quite right, is, you know, you virtually need all the planners to, you know, I don't wish it on anyone, to be disabled so they can actually see what the problems are.
Or actually have a consultant at least.
Oh, consultant, yeah. Someone like yourself or whoever. I was going to ask you, Steve, have you made any comments on the local plan at all?
Yes.
You have. Excellent.
We did. Mike Jeske, who's I think parish councillor in Kennington, he knows a bit more about this in terms of technicalities. And we were both pointing out things like, yes, they're talking about having playgrounds with equipment that disabled children can use, but grass to get to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're in a wheelchair and it's a little bit muddy, you just can't do that. And you know, it's things. It's, as you pretty much said, it's things being designed for disabled people rather than by disabled people.
Yeah.
And the amount of times I've said to somebody, "Well, no, I can't do that because of my chair," and they go, "Oh, yes, you can." Well, no, I can't. I'm the one that's got the lived experience. Don't tell me what surfaces I can go over, because I've been stuck enough times.
Yeah.
And the other thing is people conflate it with wheelchair access. They sort of conflate it with pram and pushchair access, because obviously those are more complicated than foot pedestrian access. If you're pushing a pushchair and you're going across the road and there's no drop curb, you can normally rock it back.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's a nuisance, and for some people it's a struggle, but it's a possibility. But for those of us who are, you know, stuck in our, you know, lumpy chairs, it's physically impossible, and you do.
Yeah.
The other thing we're pushing on at the moment is bushes. The amount of shrubbery that is literally, I've looked at some and they're more than 2 foot into the path.
Yeah.
The path less than a foot wide, and the process of actually getting that done through Suffolk highways can take about 3 months. So by the time the one that you've reported has been, there's no path left. It's, you know, I'd be very tempted to just go out.
I reported some down Chalkstone Way down where I live the other day, and it was astonishing. I've got before you come, I've got Councillor Marks first, and then Councillor Hanlon again.
Yeah, could I just respond to the bit about the paths and the weeds? The Haverhill, Keep Haverhill Tidy, we now have 4 strimmers. And what we're offering to people is that if there's an area that we can come and trim off for them, provided we can use their bins, because obviously we don't have any access to get rid of the stuff at the moment. We don't have can't sort of carry stuff with us to get rid of it, but we are very happy to come along and trim areas that you're struggling to get past. So the Keep Haverhill Tidy site, just put up your requirement on there. 4 of us have got the strimmers. I have to confess, I've still got to learn how to put mine together, but I'm hoping Elaine's going to teach me. But I think they've all put theirs together. So if you need any help with that, please do ask. And we're very happy to come along. Don't worry about Suffolk County Council. We'll manage that for you.
The issue is it's not weeds, it's hedges, which are, like 8 foot tall and made of branches and not just weeds.
So can I just, so is it the lower level of the branches that capture you as you go past?
It's all of them.
So would they not, I've also got
5 foot tall in my wheelchair.
I've also got an electric, battery operated hedge cutter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got particular areas that are causing you problems, do let me know, and I'm happy to come along and get those off for you, provided they're not on somebody's private property.
Well, this is the thing, they are private. They're private bushes. They're people's bushes that are hanging over the path.
Well, in which case the town council can actually write to them and ask for them to.
But as I say, I've looked through the regulations for it, and it's 21 days for that stage, 21 days for the next stage, and I think 21 days for the final stage. So,
but, if they're not too many, we can go knock on the door and say, would they mind if we whip off? If you're getting stuck somewhere, that's not acceptable. So, let us know. We'll do whatever we can to help you.
Thank you. The ones that in particular were highlighted a lot on Sunday is the road that goes from, I think it's Crowland Road, the Place Farms side entrance is on. I think that's then Castle Lane that goes over the top to Eastern Avenue.
Okay.
And there's a couple of really bad ones on the right hand side of that as you're going up towards Eastern Avenue.
All right,
there are several.
I've got COVID at the moment, but if would you mind just dropping me a message on that, and I will go up and have a look. But
yeah, sure.
Obviously, you just have to wait till I've got rid of this blinking virus. Sorry.
Before we come back to Councillor Hanlon, can I go back to Colin, because he probably got the answer here.
Well, actually, Councillor Marks did mention it. The town council has delegated authority to issue those letters. So whilst you're right that there is a process, the process is extremely extended if you go through the county council. If you go through us, generally speaking, the owners of properties hop to it pretty fast and don't wait 21 days. So if you know of any addresses, let us know. We'll serve letters on them straight away.
Great. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Colin. Councillor Hanlon?
Yes, thank you, Chair, again. It's a question to Steve, really. Steve, do you drive?
Can't, mate.
No, you don't.
No, in fact, and I can't use public transport. There are no taxis available that will take me. I can't use buses, and the train company actually changed their policy from we will take people in taxis if they can't fit on the train to if you're too big to go on the train, we won't help you, as a direct result of me reporting them to the Ombudsman. So rather than improving the situation, they made it worse because it was easier for them. So they've actually taken a step back in that term. I can get driven around in a van that I own, but limited access to people who can drive it, because obviously it's,
because I don't know if you know, but I've went around town in a wheelchair, but completely different to your situation. I had a very, very light wheelchair, and it's absolutely unbelievable. The hills, I just didn't realise how bad it was.
No.
But the question I was going to ask about, it was about I couldn't reach the parking machines.
We parked in the...
there was a curb in front of them.
We parked in the one in the library today, and there's only one that I can get to there. And as we all know, when those machines are out of order, you're supposed to go to the next one. So a lot of people that are in my situation, if they're lucky enough to still be able to drive, they might struggle to actually get a ticket if that one specific machine is out of order. We've all experienced that. They've run out of tickets.
Okay.
What I was going to ask again is could you sort of put them sort of things in your comments to the local plan? Because I'm sure car parks will come up on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I will. I mean, there's so much stuff that we want to talk about on there. So, I'll try and keep that in mind too.
Okay. Well, if I just move it on a little bit, the agenda item is actually to consider what support can be given to the Disability Action Group from the Town Council. I think, obviously, as some of us are district councillors as well, I think we have, certainly during our private discussions we've had for the local plan before it came out for consultation, we've raised a lot of this up many times. It's unfortunately in Haverhill is the local plan has probably going to have very little effect, or the new local plan, I'll rephrase that, will have very little effect on Haverhill because all the plans of, most of them have already been approved from that, which is a real shame. But there's nothing to stop us, either as town council or as district councillors, pushing for whatever. Is anyone got any other thoughts on this? Because I think generally, we all agree what Steve is saying.
John, can I?
Yes, Margaret. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just say to Steve, has he tried community transport? Because that they've got wheelchair accessible vehicles, and they take people. You're saying no? What are you saying?
They don't. My chair is not. The dimensions and weight of my chair do not allow me to go onto that community transport vehicle.
I think that's something important that we need perhaps to highlight, because that's not really very acceptable. That's that should take any vehicle. I'm surprised, but they've told you that specifically, have they?
Yes.
Okay.
Steve, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Can we note that, John?
Yeah. Colin, I think, is writing that down. Yeah. Councillor Brown, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. A lot of this is, obviously we can help as much as we can, Town Council, but a lot of this is down to the County Council. And as we know, they don't very often listen. A huge amount of effort has gone in over the last few years. It was a big thing with Julian Flood. To be fair, with all county councillors in the last 10 years that I've known, I've tried to get drop curbs put in, etc. And the county council just do not seem to want to listen. This has been ongoing for years and years and years. Maybe we should try and get hold of our present county councillors and just say, look, this is something we really want as a priority, to try and get more drop curbs, a better transport system put in, paths, etc. For disabled members of the community. So I think that's something we really need to highlight with Joe, David and Heike, and say that it's something that we really, really want as a council. Yeah.
I will be making that quite plain tomorrow at the plan meeting as well.
Right.
Those of you that have had face-to-face conversations with me know that I don't back down particularly easily.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Steve. Colin, did you have any thoughts at all?
No, I just really wanted to give Steve a platform here to let you know that the Disability Action Group is up and running, and we can hear what they've said. I mean, just my only reflection would be it does seem amazing that we're still fighting battles from 20, 30 years ago today, as if we haven't been doing anything at all. It's just exhausting that lifetime home standards, it's all right for 90% of the new housing stock not to be built to lifetime home standards is ridiculous. That we're still having to chase people about drop curbs some 26 years after they were part M of the building regulations. It's just never ending, and it's just such a shame.
I think that, as I was saying before, the fact that all those paths across the top of town are being replaced, but there doesn't seem to be any incorporation of new drop curbs into that, whilst it's all been dug up anyway. It seems I don't understand that complete lack of joined up thinking. It's not even, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's no extra money really, very little extra time, and it would make life so much better for so many people. To the Rovers, for example, if you're trying to make their way there under your own steam, it's virtually impossible.
Well, they are putting in a new footpath, as you probably know, from the roundabout up to the Rovers.
Yeah.
That is due to have. They're nowhere near finished on it yet, because the roundabout itself's not finished. That should have been done first. I have been told that they are going to be putting up where it can be done. They're going to put a couple of drop curbs in along that path. They've only done the bit down by the roundabout at the moment. That's what I've been told. But in fact, underneath there, I am fighting to get the underpass actually reopened up to the school, which will make life even easier because it's impossible to get up to the pedestrian crossing.
Yes and no. That the slope coming off of that underpass is horrendous.
It is horrendous, but
anyone in a manual chair won't be able to do it.
No, it would have to be totally re-engineered. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of money, but we'll see what the developers say. They're under no obligation to do anything, but they have. The good thing is they haven't said no. So we'll see. Thank you. Right, Councillor Smith, it's a quick one because we need to move on. Dave Smith, that is, by the way.
Yeah, it's just last council meeting when we did the committees, I did notice that we had a vacancy for what was previously called the Disability Forum. We normally have a representative on there. Should we be putting somebody on the action group?
Well, requesting a space, perhaps, if they would like representation of the council on it.
Yeah, well, yeah, because we used to have somebody on the forum before. I just wanted to.
Paula, yeah.
Me and Liz have both been to the meetings previously, but yeah, it's always good to get the opinions from literally from the horse's mouth, as they say.
We are currently looking into our structure and how we organise, and we are looking at having. We are meeting monthly. We're looking at having a quarterly invite meeting where people from all the different agencies can come along. Because, for example, I mean, it wouldn't be. I would feel uncomfortable inviting just one of you council members from one of the political parties, for example. I know local government is very much, rather than the party, but still there is that sort of, it's better to have a range of people. And also outside agencies like Scope want to come and talk to us. What we don't want to be is a group where people come and talk at us. Box. We want to invite people along if they've got something specific to talk about. And it's our group. It's not the council's group. The council are supporting us in a lot of ways, but it is a group for disabled people by disabled people, so that we're not just sort of having to go, well, this is the way it's always done. We can get angry. We can throw our toys out the pram. We can do whatever needs to be done to get things done. We want to have our own voice rather than just being part of someone else's voice.
Yeah, okay. Just one final thing before we close this bit up is please make sure that you keep us updated of any problems you've come across that we may or may not be able to help you with.
Yeah. I mean, as a lot of you might know, we do have our Facebook page, which anyone is welcome to follow. Yeah, we've got a Facebook page. It's at the moment it's a little bit people moaning about drop curves.
Yeah, okay.
We are trying to get it to be something a bit more thinking. As you might know, actually last month I was supposed to be in London on a public buildings access course, which unfortunately fell through because people didn't. The people that had promised us the money to send us down there ended up saying that no, they couldn't do it in the end. So that's a nuisance. But we're trying to get training. We're trying to get official. We're trying to do an audit of the town centre. We're trying to, and part of that will be promoting good practice as well as saying things that maybe could be improved.
Yeah, all right, Steve. Well, I appreciate your time.
That's all right.
And nice to see you again.
Yeah, and I'll see you again tomorrow, I'd imagine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, see you in the morning. Yes, thank you. You're more than welcome to carry on attending if you want to stay. It's up to you.
I think I'm going to go and have a cigarette, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers.
I leave.
John, we're just going to move rooms, so I'll turn our camera on for a minute just so we get a better internet connection.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, thanks.
We're going to move on, if you're okay. If where's Daniel? Daniel moved about again, moved in areas. If it's all right, I'm going to move on to item 11A, which is the local history group grant application, if you don't mind. So we've got Tony Turner sat here diligently. Can I just ask, Colin, before we do that, anybody else in the public waiting area at all? So I can skip number 7, which is the public forum as well. Okay, just if we wouldn't mind just waiting for Liz and Dave to come back. And then we'll move on to item 11A, and then we'll skip back again, if that's all right with everyone. Just going to shut that blind.
Aaron, so if I shift you into the waiting room for this item.
I was about to ask what happens.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, I'll put you in the waiting room, and then it's everybody else's responsibility except mine to remember to bring you back again.
Oh, I think that's yeah. I think you ought to take responsibility for that. You're managing that. Yeah. Okay, we're still waiting for Liz and Dave to come back. I don't know if we want to carry on waiting for them. Oh no, they're coming now. Here they come. Here they come.
Yeah, sorry, we're back now. Hope to work.
Okay, well, I was just saying what we're going to do. We're going to skip ahead to 11A, which is the local history group grant application on the basis Tony Turner's diligently saying here. And Aaron has been moved to the waiting room for the time being as he is chair of the trustees. So I guess Tony will talk, but they basically are requesting £3,000 to cover primarily the rent and other items for the room in the Arts Centre. Tony, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. I think you've got all the spiel that Brian wrote.
Yeah.
So really, I'm just going to leave you with that and say, have you got any questions?
Well, there you go. Any questions from anybody at all? Margaret, were you going to say something, Margaret?
I was just going to say I absolutely approve this. So I would like to put a proposal forward that we accept it.
Okay. I was just going to ask one question before I get a second, if I may. Colin, you and I had an email conversation, was it last week, I think it was, about the cost of the phone and all the internet and all that stuff. Is that included in all these costings?
No, because I don't think that the local history group have yet established who's paying for the telephone. Tony can correct me if he's wrong, but at the time we were discussing the application, their task ahead of them was to try and track down who we believe in West Suffolk is actually paying their bills, etc., in the first place.
Well, it is West Suffolk Council that's paying it, but actually which office, I've got no idea. It's a sort of historic thing that they, when they ran the Arts Centre, or the Town Hall as it was then, they gave us a grant and they put the phone in and put the internet in for us. And they've paid for it ever since.
Okay. I think I was going to say, just for the benefit of others, the ultimate plan is that we move the history group onto the town council's phone system and onto the town council's internet system. But what I suggested to Colin was, if ever the history group moved out, it'd be nice to know what the commercial rate is, if you like, for renting. It's not important in the scheme of things, but just technically for future use. That was all. I think
that is the commercial rate.
No, you're renting. The rent is, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the ancillary items, the phone and the internet.
Oh, I see.
That's not including the rent. That's what I'm trying to say. That if they did move out and Fred Bloggs came along, we ought to be able to say to them, well, actually, the rent is this, including phone and internet, whatever it might be. I mean, I know it's pedantic, but it's, if you or I are not around, or it's certainly not you around, in a few years' time, somebody might say, well, how much is it? I know I'm not kicking you out or anything. I'm just saying, yeah. And I'm sure, I think Councillor Lucarini is trying to find out who at West Suffolk handles all this. I suspect it's the IT department because they normally deal with the comms. And I do know a couple of people over there if it becomes a difficulty. So I have a proposal anyway from Councillor Margaret Marks, assuming nobody else has got any comments. Any seconder, please? Councillor Hanlon, are you seconding? Just nod. Thank you. Right, all those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. I assume Councillor Marks has, where she proposed it. That's fine. Lovely, thank you. Thank you, Tony, for
Thank you
hanging
very
around.
much indeed.
No, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Would you like me to let Councillor Lucarini back in?
Good job you remembered.
Well done.
And you can stay if you want, Tony, it's up to you. Oh, he's back. He's still there. Okay. Great. So what I'm going to do now is switch back. I've lost Daniel again. Oh, you're in the middle. There you go. Is this you, Colin, about the fast track grant?
It is, but given
Do we
that
want to go on to the next one?
well, Daniel's joined the call, but he's not actually not that well himself. So
Really?
it might be more humane to let him do his bit and let him escape.
Sorry, Daniel. Yeah, I didn't know that. Sorry. Shall we move on to item 10 Alpha then, which is Creative Director and Arts Centre? Daniel, over to you.
Thank you. No need to apologise. I don't mind at all. There's no reason you should know I haven't been well. So hopefully you all have had time to look through the report that I sent round. Obviously, it's very early days for me, so I'm very happy for you to throw questions at me. But what I tried to do with the report was give you a general update of, people I've met, things I've been doing, my initial actions, if you like, the things that I've put in place in these very early days. Then I thought what you might be interested in was a bit of box office intelligence, really, so that you can start to see via me the picture unfolding at the Arts Centre and what I think about the way forward, because it's all very well spotting patterns and giving, bad news, but there's got to be a way forward. And so I've sort of started to make some suggestions to you to see what, so that you're not only informed, but have a opportunity to give your view on whether you think I'm right. Then I've obviously programming has to be a great focus for me to begin with, because when I started sitting in this seat, the programming was it had been done only to a limited point in the year, and we need a dynamic, exciting program at the Arts Centre first and foremost, don't we? So I've been ploughing a lot of efforts and stretching my address book quite considerably, given the short time scale and the fact that there isn't a lot of product around at the moment, certainly not quality product. So in some cases I've created product by through people I know or calling in favours specifically for Haverhill, rather than rely on what is out there and already made, if you see what I mean. So I've been very, very busy ploughing my time into getting Haverhill an impressive programme for the autumn onwards, because it's my firm belief that when that first printed brochure lands on everybody's doorstep, it needs to be a bit of a wow after this break. Otherwise, we're never going to coax people back. So I've given you a few of the things that in my report, a few of the things that I've been pleased to get for us. And then one of the biggest chunks of time annually at the Arts Centre is the pantomime, of course. That takes quite a chunk of December into January as well, if you count Centre Stage. And so I felt it was appropriate to update you on the fact that I've had a good look at that, because, it was clear to me that it it's been done the same way for quite some time, and not necessarily that it's still, that's not necessarily the right way to move forward. So I've spoken to the producers, and we've struck a different deal on the schedule, which I think will be more advantageous for the Arts Centre, concentrate the sales into more what we call peak performance times, and make better use of the time, so that we're not paying staff to do a very long run of half houses rather than a shorter run of much busier houses. And then on the end, there's just a little tacked on update about this very exciting modern art project in partnership with West Suffolk Council. I can't claim any credit for that. It was around long before me, but I just wanted to let you know that I was part of a meeting about that, and that it is progressing, and new sites and things are being considered, and it's all looking and sounding very possible, which is hugely exciting. And if it does come off, then the next question will be, how do we make sure that it benefits the arts, that the Arts Centre is truly linked with that project, so that, we don't miss the opportunity of putting the Arts Centre on the map as part of that project, and that we're not don't just happen to be next door. So, that I didn't want to sort of read through the report, because I think that's probably a waste of all of your time, and I'm sure you've read it. So that's more of a sort of a bird's eye view of it. But obviously, if you've got any specific questions of me, then, more than happy to take anything you may wish to ask at this meeting. But also, I've got a phone now. So please do call into the Arts Centre for a coffee, pick up the phone, email me. Very keen to engage with members anytime.
Yeah. Daniel, thank you very much indeed. I have got a few notes I wrote down this morning, but first let's go to other councillors. Have they got any questions at all? No. Oh, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Hi, Daniel. I haven't met you yet, but I've heard good things, and I'm really looking forward to what you deliver. So it looks really exciting. Really looking forward to it. So wish you well. All right, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Councillor Dave Smith.
Yeah, likewise. Nice to meet you, Daniel, even if it's not in person, but no doubt we'll rectify that for too long. Obviously, your figures that you've quoted here, obviously some of them are disappointing, but my way of thinking about it is we're offering a community service, so sometimes we're not always going to be breaking even. We're not, to my mind, we're not the sort of business that the main aim is to make a profit. It is to provide a service that is only available to people available to Haverhill residents so they don't have to travel to places like Cambridge or the Apex in Bury. So some figures may be disappointing, but I wouldn't be too disheartened by that. At least it is some people coming through the door, and it is providing a type of entertainment that people may not get elsewhere or locally anyway. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'll just come back on that, because it's interesting, because we had that very discussion at my heads of department meeting on Monday, yesterday, because some of the other heads of department said to me, for instance, I'm not picking on him, but for instance, is it time to call it a day with Marty Wilde? Diminishing returns, he used to sell out. Then he was down to, half, and now it's 80 odd people. And my response was, well, no, actually, because, it's a bit of a coup to get Marty Wilde to Haverhill. It might be a bit of a loss leader, but some of these things, you can't make excuses for everything in this way, but some of these things should be seen as an investment, shouldn't they? They're an investment in the profile of the Arts Centre. They're an investment in the people that do come and the community of interest that represents. And it's an investment in, future audiences too, because, a name like Marty Wilde gets people talking, makes people pick up the brochure. They might not come and see him, but if he hadn't been on the front of the brochure, he might not pick, if that familiar face hadn't been on the front of the brochure, they might not pick up the brochure. So, you know, I do totally get that. It would never be my aim to exclude things from the art centre because I don't think they'll fill it. Obviously, we have to aim to fill it sometimes, so that I don't cost you a fortune. And I would never book something that I know would, you know, on purpose lose you loads of money. But I simultaneously recognise that this is not all about making money, and it absolutely is about access to creative opportunities, whether that's as a participant, audience member, you know, artist, community group, whatever. And so you know, that was the message I gave back to my colleagues on Monday. And so it's nice to hear it coming from elected members too, because, you know, that's absolutely my view. So you don't need to fear on that one.
Okay. Councillor Margaret.
I just wonder, I noticed in your report that you comment that the older people obviously are still perhaps a little nervous about coming out, but I also wonder whether we're not really offering them something that might attract them. And I wonder if you thought of the sort of musical style evening, you know, where you have the tables and they can have some drink and food on them, you know, bring in a caterer or whatever, and do the musical style, because I can tell you they used to be immensely popular in Saffron Walden where I lived. I can tell you they were always full, but it's just, I think maybe asking them what they want, asking them what would attract them to come back and what perhaps would make them feel safe. I've looked at the sort of program that you have. I have to say Leslie Garrett's very attractive. You know, I think that'd be very exciting if you get that there, but I think then you need to extend your audience, because people in Bury and Cambridge would probably be very interested in that as well. So I don't think we should limit the audience to here. It should be a much wider audience for some of these people. But thank you for your report.
Yeah, I mean, again, couldn't agree more. I'm not sure that we've asked our audience very much for a little while. We certainly don't do enough of that, and that's something that I feel very strongly about. And so I think we certainly need to do that. It's well overdue, asking our audience and re-engaging with them directly about what they want. I agree that absolutely with what you're saying. The reason that older people aren't coming back isn't just because of COVID. You know, I've been in and watched a few of the acts since I've joined that were aimed at the older market, and, you know, they're a bit tired, they're a bit the same as they've seen before. And so I think that there is a programming element to bringing them back as well. I think you're absolutely right. It can't all be just put down to COVID. And I think you're absolutely right that Old Time Musical remains very popular. And only last week I was scaling my address book and the internet and everything I could think of to find an Old Time Musical company. Years ago, when I used to program venues, there were 3 or 4 really good ones. Sadly, they've all gone. And the producers that used to specialize in that kind of thing, sadly, are also gone. However, I was a trustee of the British Old Time Musical Society, and so I have lots of contacts in that world. So I've put the word out there that I'm after somebody that can put us together an Old Time Musical in Haverhill. I know that Saffron Walden has an old time, or certainly used to have an Old Time Musical Society. I don't know if they still have. So, you know, I do know that it's popular around here. So that's something that I definitely would support putting in the programme. It's just a case of finding a producer or promoter that still does it, because they're quite few and far between. There is, of course, the Brick Lane Music Hall. I've had them tour out to venues before. They're based in London. They have their own venue in London. But sadly, they don't tour out anymore. They only do their London shows. So I tried that. There's Galston Pavilion, which has a very famous old time music hall that runs the summer season. So I've approached them about whether some of their show could come to us. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but the kind of leading player in their show is a local comic called Nigel Boyce Sire. And so I'm in touch with him about maybe doing a version of the Galston Old Time Music Hall in Haverhill, bringing some of those artists. So that might come off. But you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
A programme for older people also needs spicing up a bit if we're going to get them back. It's not just, we can't just say, oh, it's all because of COVID.
No, it does. And the way we sell it to them is important as well.
Absolutely. And I think the reintroduction of the, you know, the good old fashioned paper brochure coming through your door will be a big step forward, because, you know, in my experience, programming venues, you know, you can put as much as you like on the internet and Facebook and Twitter and all those things, but nothing beats a good brochure.
No, I mean,
and so, you know, I'm very keen to get that out.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you again, Chair. Obviously, the national census has just come out. I think West Suffolk, it's come out for West Suffolk, and it's about the age, where the age is, the average age, and I think it's around about in the 50s. And I'm obviously we haven't got Haverhill area yet, but I'm just wondering, do you sort of look at that type of thing to find out, you know, what the average age and how it help in doing shows and things like that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, we locally there is a thing called the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, which is which takes the census data but then buries down deeper community by community. They don't obviously do every single little village, but they certainly do larger places like Haverhill, Ely, Soham, you know, the market towns. And so a few weeks ago, when we were asked, I mentioned in my report, we were asked to put ideas forward for the Levelling Up funding. The first thing I did was look up the Joint Strategic Needs Assessment for Haverhill, which was last refreshed not that long ago, actually. It was 2020, so it's not too bad. Some of them are very old, but the Haverhill one is relatively up to date. And that has a huge amount of really useful demographic information in it. But what it says is that actually Haverhill bucks the trend in terms of West Suffolk, and you have quite a young population. Younger than the average population in across West Suffolk quite considerably, and you have quite a lot of young families. What those demographics don't have access to is a lot of resource. So what you've got is quite a large population of young people and young families, but on a very limited budget. And so that's a programming challenge, because, you know, how do you engage that audience without it breaking the bank, without finances becoming a barrier, etc., etc. So, for example, next year in February half term, I'm building a children's and family theatre and film festival over a few days, all affordable, all really safe, recognisable titles, so that it's nothing too wacky and doesn't scare people off. But, you know, good, solid, well-known stuff for families and young and children and young people that won't cost a fortune, and see whether, you know, that starts to bring in that demographic. So that's an example of where I've used that data to directly influence my programming policy, if you like. So the answer to the question is yes, it does exist, and yes, I do use it. But our own box office data, of course, is also quite useful, which we've been looking at quite a bit. But with COVID, you know, is also a tiny bit out of date now, I would say. So yes, I use all of that.
Yeah, just come back on that. Yeah, so it is a year old, isn't it? That's the problem. Yeah, I'd like to welcome you as well. I apologise, I should have said that first of all. I'd like to welcome you to the fold, and I'm really looking forward to what you're going to put forward. Give us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Very quickly, Daniel, from my side, you've actually mentioned audience surveys. I'd already written that down. Something we don't really do, audience surveys. I'm very keen on that. You know, how do you know what they like and what they don't like unless you ask them? You mentioned about the brochures. I personally would like to see a radical redesign of it, and I don't know if that's happening or not. I think the other one, the old one, was a little bit tired, the same look and feel every time. I am concerned about the shows that are coming up in the next 2 to 3 months. You've mentioned a few of them that are doing good, some are not doing very well. I mean, Bob Jury, who does the Neil Diamond, he's very good. You've got ELO Encounter in September, who are really good as well. But what I did notice, for example, on Friday, there was actually no adverts at all on the digital sign outside, nor in any, and all the notice boards in the town are still out of date. Now I know that's not so your department, but I just want to mention that while I'm here. And so I mentioned about the promotion of things. The pantomime is an interesting one because when I saw the schedule for that, because I normally film every single show to try and get something that is usable, because you know what happens with pantomimes, they all ad lib and don't necessarily follow the script. And I was quite surprised at how many shows were planned for this year. I think it was 19, if I vaguely remember. And the big problem we had like last year is they bring everybody back for one day after Christmas. What a pain that was,
Well, that's what's gone.
Good. Well, that's I'm pleased for that. And you're right about the 50%, backsides on seats and everything. The merchandising is an interesting one because as a authority, we actually wanted to get rid of those things. My big problem with those, and I've said this many times, is we get 10% of the income, but spending an enormous amount of staff time selling them on behalf of the promoter. I personally would probably get rid of the things altogether because the income is just not worth it for the manpower involved, other than the fact the kids like them. But of course, we don't want them, the plastic things that only last 5 minutes, and as soon as they probably walk out of the auditorium, the batteries die on them. I'm very keen that we don't indirectly increase our costs, and I think from what you've said, I don't think that is the case. I respect what Councillor Dave Smith said about, not all events are designed to make profits, and we know that most of them don't. In reality, because either the ticket prices are considered too high and you don't get people on the seats, or people don't know about it and that sort of thing. So, but I think, it's early days. Let's see what happens. I did, when I saw the 3 Degrees, I'm not so sure about Leslie Gout. I'm not a great fan of that sort of music. The 3 Degrees, I thought, yep, that's what I like to see, something different. We've never had them before. And, years gone by, we used to have the same thing. We would have somebody like, Michael McIntyre turned up. I can't remember what year that was, a long time ago now, but where's he got to now? Nobody knows, but it's that sort of thing. So thank you, Daniel. Appreciate your time on that.
If I can just, there's a few things that I can put your mind at rest on there. So I have taken up the merchandising question with the producers of the pantomime. So because selling merchandise forms quite a large percentage of their profit on the production, we would suffer in terms of the overall deal if they were not able to sell merchandise, because they'd have to make the money up somewhere else, and that would have to come from the box office. So instead of getting rid of the merchandise, what I've done is I've told them that we're not prepared to have any merchandise in the building that isn't 100% recyclable and doesn't have 100% rechargeable batteries. There is an increased cost to buying that because it's not the cheap plastic rubbish anymore. But I've also said that that they'll have to swallow that cost. We're not prepared to let them put
Good.
prices up to compensate.
Good.
So, and they have agreed to do that. In terms of the brochure, you're absolutely right. The brochure needs a radical overhaul, and I've already tasked Sarah and our designer to do that, because I want this next brochure to be the new look brochure. So this next brochure will not look like the previous ones. We're going to completely different format, completely different design.
Good,
I agree with you. I think it will serve us much better.
Yeah.
So just a few things picked out of your very valuable points that might give you some reassurance that we're thinking along the same lines in all of those aspects.
That's great. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time. I don't think there's anything else. You're not involved in anything else. So if there's no more questions or anything, thank you for your report. And if you need to go off you go. As they say, it's up to you if you're feeling not brilliant.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And as I said, I'm always on the end of the phone or on the end of an email or the other side of the office door. So, do stay in touch.
Lovely. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Daniel.
Right. Shall we move back to, do you want to do the grants for the use of the Arts Centre and Leiston Centre, Colin?
Yep, sure, certainly. I'll share screen if you're happy for me to do that.
Yeah, you got the form. I saw, lost it somewhere here.
Hopefully you can see that okay.
Yeah.
So basically, the story behind this is that we want to be more transparent in terms of billing. And as you know, actually being able to publish a price list for hiring rooms. But at the same time, we do acknowledge that particularly historically, there are users of the Art Centre or the Leiston Centre who are either habituated to or only able to use those spaces because they've got it at a reduced price or in some cases quite complicated arrangements of how money that they bring in gets split between ourselves and them. So what we wanted to do was come up with a simpler method than having to complete a full grant application for people to ask for some form of reduction and to ask for guidance from councillors on how we might go about administering this in terms of whether we have a smaller committee of, to say, 3 councillors that oversee the decision making, so we can respond very, very quickly rather than wait for a bi-monthly meeting to consider grant applications, or whether it's done by officers with consultation from a couple of councillors. So it's really how you feel it needs to go. The policy part is extremely short, simply because you've not written it yet, and the purpose of this session is to discuss how you would see such a scheme working and any particular rules that you think ought to be in there. So I don't expect you to be able to approve it at this session. I think it's really to consider what should be in it and for councillors to comment upon it. So if that's a good enough introduction, do you need me to share screens, or is this more of a conversation if people can see their own copies?
I can certainly see my own copy. If I may, I just got a couple of, not questions, but statements, I suppose. Well, question one actually is, would you consider this to be for a one-off reduction, or even zero maybe, or something that's recurring, because I guess if it's recurring, it really should go through the grant process at some point, not necessarily immediately, but at some point. And the other one I had, I've written down here earlier today, I said, as long as it's not abused or is a backdoor method to avoid grant funding procedures.
Yeah, so it's only for hiring space.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to use it for anything else.
No.
I think that's an interesting thought, because actually the people who are kind of going to be affected by this, who are kind of, if you like, on a legacy process at the moment, where we're not rocking the boat because it's not really their fault that we're where we are recurring. But it's an interesting thought that a recurring has a full grant process. One-offs have a shorter one. We will need to bear in mind, and it's in no way prevented because our full grant application doesn't say you have to be this or you have to be that. But a lot of the groups, they don't have a particular kind of format or governance structure. Some of them are actually, to effectively, it's not entirely sure whether they are doing us a favour or we're doing them a favour in terms of the split. So there are some users of the hall where we take a bit of the money that they charge the participants, and they keep the rest. It's hardly a living wage for the time that they've spent doing it. So it barely covers their own expenses, I'd have said. And it's good for well-being because it's providing activity and social interaction for people who we would want to maintain that going on. But it's simply done on a handshake, and it's not something that, as far as I'm aware, that the councillors have ever had the opportunity to endorse. And of course, it does mean that when we talk in our annual reports, etc., as to the value of what the council puts back into the community through, from the precept back in, that these things just go missing. They just don't notice the fact that this is actually a value attached to it.
Yeah, I was specifically thinking of something like the coffee morning at Leiston, run by one of our erstwhile residents, who, best friend in the world. It provides so much benefit to the community that arguably, if we charge them at all, it would be, wrong. You start thinking, we'll just let them have it for a couple of hours if that's the case. That sort of thing. Any other comments from anybody else at all? I can't see any. Councillor Dave Smith, I have just see a hand up. And then Councillor Hanlon.
Will this sort of do away with the needs of, like we had the family history group tonight come to sort of for a grant to pay for the rental of a room and then giving the money back to us? Would that sort of negate the need to do that?
Well, it depends on yourselves as councillors. What Councillor Burns has just suggested is that those grants would continue as they do at the moment to go through the full grant process, given it's £3,000. Whereas in terms of the cost of a monthly coffee morning or a weekly coffee morning, that amounts to only £100, £200 or so, I should think. So a lot of it is almost administrative, in that it's simply so that we've got a audit trail to show that people who are using our premises but are not paying for them, that it's done in the full knowledge of councillors, and not kind of under the radar without you even knowing. Obviously, a lot of things because you're involved in the community and you know the people doing things. But that we do have people who get very good rates, which is absolutely fine. We're not talking about stopping people doing it. We're just talking about actually capturing the fact that people, when they come and say, "Oh, well, can we can we do vaccinations at your arts centre? And we say, oh yeah, sure, yeah, you can do it for nothing. That's a decision that councillors have endorsed and not a decision that a individual officer has made.
Yeah, perfect. Councillor Hanlon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, does this include the zone, Colin? Because there's a group called Haverhill Mums of Very Special Kids on Facebook, and forgive me, I think that is the group that are going to the zone, and it was so successful that they had to sort of cut their numbers down. In other words, doing one lot one week and another lot another week to the zone. Now they're sort of with parents that really only one parent, and if even single parent where they don't work, because they have to be at home with their children. Does this include them sort of groups going to the zone?
So I think we might have to differentiate between where we've detected an untapped market and are able to come up with a proposal from our side that we're then able to bring a group in, because the group you're describing is informal. It's not a constituted group, and it's not somebody running it as such. It's a group of parents who've kind of got together, and the deal there is effectively the manager making use of some downtime and generating income through the cafe down there. So there's nobody really to fill in the form. So I think what would be interesting on that is to make sure that managers, and I think Sandra's pretty good at this, report through their existing reporting process where they've tapping a market as opposed to actually being approached by a group as such. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Because when I used to run an autism group, we couldn't have a parent to be a treasurer or anything like that. But I used to be the chair. We could, the mums are too busy looking after their children in doing the treasury part of it. But I'm just wondering with them sort of thing whether they can, they wouldn't be able to apply for a grant because I know that they're so busy with their children. So I'm just wondering how they would sort of get on with this sort of scheme, really.
Yeah, so I think because I think ad hoc groups where nobody's actually in charge, as you've just described, well, there's nobody to complete the form. So that would be down to, that would be basically just like a normal member of the public booking space at the zone and the manager controlling it. I think if they felt they got themselves organised and wanted to put on an event at, say, the Leyston Centre or the Arts Centre, then in that case, there would be somebody taking a lead, and there would therefore be a recognisable person to say, well, you need to ask us whether we'll waive the costs for hiring that big space. Which they're not hiring the zone. I think we should be really clear about that. They're not hiring the zone at all. We're simply making the opportunity that otherwise we would have dead time, and all the time Sandra's asked to try and find ways to fill the very quiet times at the zone. So that's the kind of coming to it from the opposite angle.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Liz Smith.
Thank you. So the policy that you've got on here on this form, you talk about the decision to provide a higher space will be made by the clerk, deputy clerk or arts centre manager after consultation with the chair. So how would we, if that was the case, if we said, that would happen, how would we as councillors get to know these been made? Would you report back on decisions that were made to this group?
We could certainly make it an agenda item so that what Leisure and Community effectively got a report in saying that these higher space grant requests have been granted in the preceding month. But I mean, that would work either way, whether or not you decided you wanted a committee of 3 councillors to make the decision, or whether you wanted officers to make the decision, having consulted with one or more councillors. But either way, I think you're right, we could report it as an agenda item.
Yeah.
Would we have a financial limit on this, Colin, do you think? Because, you know, if you're giving a group, let's say every week, you know, I don't know, 50 quid benefit, and they've, you know, that's £2,500 over the year. Do you think there should be a limit? Difficult, because
because I suppose the practical limit is hiring the entire art centre for their entire year.
Yeah.
Which would be quite expensive, and probably way beyond anything we would intend. No. So I'm up for suggestions. Daniel has his hand up.
Daniel might have a great idea. Go on, Daniel.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow because I'm not as with it as I normally
am. No, that's fine.
Really, I just wanted to chip in because the reason I stayed for this agenda item is because it's of great interest to me, because this last week I asked Lisa, who is the Arts Centre administrator, to do an exercise for me across many of the groups. Maybe I haven't found them all yet, but many of the groups that use the Arts Centre, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, and do find for me the figure that they pay, and then do the calculation for me, you know, if we were to use our published rates, and compare the actual calculation of as per published rates to what they pay. And in most cases, I can tell you that they're paying no more than 1/3 of what it's worth, according to the published rates, you know, as approved by members. Now, we've talked a lot about community benefit and that it's a community facility. So I'm not suggesting for one moment that suddenly everybody should be paying 3 times the amount. But what is important to me is that it becomes a transparent system. Because what we've got at the moment is every single user, apart from the odd unfortunate person, you know, that comes off the street now that these new rates are in place, all the previous historic users, every single one of them is on a different deal. Every single one of them has a curiosity to their deal. And, you know, when they talk to each other, as they do, nobody can fathom, you know, why certain people pay for certain things and other people don't pay for things, and et cetera, et cetera. There is also no consistency in the type of group, because some of them are charitable, some of them are organised, some of them aren't, some of them are actually businesses. Now, that business might be giving a community benefit. I'm not questioning that, but they are a different, you know, legal classification, and so there really isn't very much consistency. Now, that could be very easily cleared up if I could say, well, the thing is, the reason none of you get, you know, you're all on a slightly different rate is because you've all had slightly different agreements from members about the level of grant they're prepared to give. You know, then suddenly it's sort of, there is a logic behind it, isn't there? Because we apply the same rate to everybody, but then we apply different levels of grant aid to different people according to the discretion of elected members, as per this scheme. So, and as Colin says, it also serves the very useful purpose for us and for me of being able to see how much that's costing, you know, the value of it each year, and to create an audit trail. It also means that when I meet with these groups and, you know, they're becoming alert to the fact that there are new rates, I'm getting quite a lot of, oh goodness, is it going to go up? You know, I can't afford to put my event on if it's going to go up. And I'm able to say to them, well, look, has gone up, it is going to go up, but there will be a mechanism that you can apply to. I can't tell you what the answer will be because that's not within my gift, but there will be a mechanism you can apply to help you out so that your rate doesn't treble. So, you know, I think that this is a very necessary move, and it clears up all sorts of current anomalies and unknowns. But what is important for you to know is that, you know, if we applied those new rates to all of those current users, then I don't think we've come across one of them yet that's paying more than 1/3 of the actual value.
Yeah, I think, Daniel, I think you hit well, both you and Colin, actually, because it's something I've been going on for ages about these random, you know, you can come in for 50 quid type thing. But in fact, we end up with 3 or 4 technical staff and ushers and whatever provision, and it's costing us a lot of money. You know, some of these groups are, you know, 200 people come in the auditorium and end up paying, you know, 100 quid or something. So I think it's very important we have transparency across everything we do, very much so. And I fully support this. Right, so ideally, we you know, the nitty gritty, if you like, I guess we can leave to Colin and officers to come up with if there's any changes to anything. But I'm quite happy to propose approval of this.
Oh, well, hang on a second, Chair. It's not done. You can't really approve this because the document's not written. So,
well, no, it's not. But your agenda item is actually to approve a new fast track scheme. So I was saying about delegating it.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest is before you go to that, would the councillors present mind considering the governance, the actual overview? Do you want it to be officers making a decision with and then running it past a councillor just for a sense check, but the decision would be by the officers? Or would you prefer that a small group of councillors made the decision and officers simply presented the rationale?
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, cheers, Chair. No, I think it's something that, you know, us as council should delegate to yourself, you know, and then we'll have a lot more consistency. You know, if 1 or 2 officers, you know, are doing this at our behest, you know, obviously we'll set the criteria, but then, you know, we'll obviously leave it to yourselves, and then, you know, hopefully there'll be consistency. You'll get to know what the groups are. You know, to keep having to come back to councillors, you know, seems a retrograde step, really. You know, let's trust the officers.
Councillor Liz Smith.
Yeah, I think just the officers, but with perhaps just running it by the chair at the time, sounds reasonable to me, as you've actually put in the document, Colin. So I think, yeah, that would. I think, yeah, I think we should involve the chair in this anyway, to be honest. And then report it back if need be. We could have it as an agenda item. These have been approved in the last quarter or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Daniel.
Just to say, if it's helpful, I'm very happy as these, if it does end up being an officer-led process, I'm very happy as part of my report in future to report on, you know, ones that have come forward and that have been granted, and I can continue to ask Lisa to do those 2 calculations if you like, so you can see, you know, how much they're actually going to pay and how much they, inverted commas, should have paid. So that across a year you can then get a sense from my reports of how much it's costing the council.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, are you happy now, Colin?
Yeah, so if you're happy for me to go away and complete the document and then I'll bring it back, it won't be to the July full council, it'll probably be September.
Does it need to come back to us if we delegate it to you?
Well, it's a policy. You need to sign it off.
Oh no, sorry, July. Sorry, I mean, yeah, I know the full council has to apply the policy, but you're just going to do all the work, or you're going to delegate it to someone to do all the work.
We'll get it done, because there's some really useful steers and stuff, something I hadn't thought of, which you've thrown in terms of the sort of whether it's if it's one off or if it's all year round, and the sort of values. So we'll do some work on that, and then we'll bring it back for council. Hopefully it'll be ready for councillors to fully approve.
Excellent, thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Would you like us to formally propose that then?
To be honest, I can take it away because there's no real point you
that's fine. Okay, that's fine.
That.
All right, let's move on then quickly. Right, let's move on to item 10, Bravo, Youth Skills Manager report, which hopefully you've all read. Another comprehensive report from Karen, and nice to see Dan's back, and Catherine. I haven't seen Dan personally, but and Catherine working. Any comments at all on youth skills? A great report. Thank you for her work again. Councillor Hanlon?
Yeah, they're doing a fantastic job. You know, tell them to carry on, and I appreciate what they're doing. Hopefully the leisure committee will thank them very much, and I expect you have been doing. But as I say, all the reports I've been reading, even though I've not been on the committee, on the working party, they work really hard, and Dan and Karen do work hard, and all the others that into it as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll pass it on.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Right, moving on to item 10, Charlie, C for Charlie, Zone Manager Sandra and team. Again, her report, comprehensive report, what they've been doing. They were down on the wreck on Sunday with the on-the-spot van. Any go on, Councillor Hanlon, I can see you want to talk.
Yes, sorry, Chair, my finger been a bit too much there. Yeah, again, they've a fantastic report, really, really good. I'm really glad that they've got the on-the-spot van going around as well now again after COVID. Can you pass on our appreciation as well, please, Colin, on that? Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. Any comments at all on the zone? I mean, I'm up the zone regularly for all kinds of reasons, but and there is an event August. I've lost the date now because I didn't print it off. August the 5th, was it? 3-year anniversary. Although we never actually had an official opening anyway, but because of all kinds of reasons. Just to note that, if you wouldn't mind. Moving on to 10 Delta, the Have You report, which you've had from Michelle Brace, comprehensive 5-page report, which I did print off. Now her funding has come to an end. Colin, did you want to say anything?
Yes, so sadly the funding has come to an end, but we do thank individual councillors, indeed the town council as a whole, for the various pots of money that put forward to extend it for longer than was originally planned. And like all these things, it's always going to be building up, and it's a shame that funding came to an end. Not necessarily because it was just about to turn the corner, as people will say, but because really the numbers that it was seeing in terms of people accessing it for a local youth service was really very impressive indeed, and some interesting anecdotal stuff coming out of it of how it's been helpful. But Michelle has been the consummate professional throughout and has been absolutely focused on making sure that she leaves a fully rock solid product for us to use, with a full set of instructions for Sarah and Karen, for their teams to feed the social media side of Have You, and to regularly do a check through of the fixed web pages on it, to make sure that the information remains up to date for as long as possible. So they will continue to maintain that. And Karen and all the kind of youth services we have are looking at the opportunities for further funding on a more holistic basis, and are not going to overlook the possibility of finding some additional funds to maintain the kind of curating work that Michelle was doing. The original plan, a kind of perhaps our idealistic plan in the youth strategy from which this grew, was that a group of young people with support would have taken editorial control. And that never really happened, despite Michelle trying all sorts of different occasions. But I guess that's one of those things that you're either lucky or you're not lucky, that you happen to stumble on a group of young people who are wanting to do that sort of thing, in the same way that every now and again a council has a really successful youth council until the youth grow up and are no longer youths anymore. And they're always very hard to keep going. But it will still be there, thanks to Michelle's investment in her time and effort on something that's really become very much her baby, and she's got a lot of emotional investment in it. So it's good that it's not just going to disappear. We're not just going to flick the switch on it or anything like that. And we'll just see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. Any comments at all? I mean, some of the technical things that I see on the to-do list, if you like, if that's the right word to use, is, we do have expertise within councillors to do that as well. So we don't want to just lose that, So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And perhaps we can talk offline about that, perhaps.
Yeah. We'll sort that out.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you for her report as well. It's very comprehensive. Right, should we move on to item 11B for Bravo, which is Haverhill District Tin Town Twinning Association. Town Twin Association. You want £2,000 to record the host of the visit from Point Sainsbury. I never know how you pronounce that. But anyway. And I was interested about this, where it's got £21 for the hire of display space, because that's not actually on the application form.
No, because we charge £3 a day for the hire space, the walls.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be, Tony, is it the local history group or the family history group that's going to be working with them?
That's the family history group.
Thank you.
Right.
So they don't have the funds for it. So I said, well, as in the case of both groups, we're going to fund it anyway. For the sake of transparency, if we add it on to this grant application, then it covers it.
All right. I was a bit confused by that one. And I'm easily confused. Any comments, please, from members? Councillor Dave Smith.
Well, I'm a big supporter on anything where we're fostering relationships with our cousins across the channel. Yeah, I'll be happy to support this, especially in this day and age where we seem to be sort of burning bridges rather than making them. Yeah, I would be happy to support this.
Was that a proposal?
That's a proposal, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Can I have a seconder then, please? Councillor Hamden, just beat Councillor Smith, Liz Smith, sorry. All right, we've got a proposal and a seconder. All those in favour, please show. Hang on, my hand's not showing. There it is. That's unanimous, I believe. Lovely. Right. Any grant recipient reports, Colin?
No, none.
No. Item 12. Date of next meeting, Tuesday, the 13th of September. Usual time, usual place, as they say. And we'll close the meeting at 20:51. If you wouldn't mind pressing the button, Colin, when you're ready.